Well, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 67 of the Rock Podcast. For those about the pod, we salute you. On this episode, Matt and I reach the letter T in the A to Z of rock. Indeed. We review the latest albums from Black Country Communion and Robert John and the Wreck. We also have latest news and hidden gems. But here he is, my co-host, fully live, no backing tapes or AI involved at all, Mr. Matt Rogers. Hello, mate.
Hello, Brian. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. I was just thinking before we recorded, you know, if you went into one of those AI engines and you plugged in two old blokes blather for an hour about rock, would it come out with our show?
Well, you could be very specific, of course, couldn't you?
You could.
You know, one bloke from Surrey and one from Edinburgh.
You could.
You could probably, you could, if you define it enough. Anyway, look, no, it's just not, it's just, don't forget our sister podcast, for those about to do experiments, we salute you. That's the science one. Right?
All right, okay.
Save that for another day.
For our next special guest, Brian Cox, ex of D-Ream and all things space.
That's right. Well, who, funnily enough, guested. It's been a weekend. You said it earlier in the pre-production meeting, the thing we laughingly call the pre-production meeting. Sorry, my chair's creaking. Talking of pre-production, we decided we're going to do this entire podcast in one hit, in one take. Not that we normally do loads of takes, by the way, because we have got better. What are we, 76 or 67?
67.
67. Yeah. There's a first mistake of the evening. In the early days, we used to think it was a good idea to drink while we were doing it. So I'd invariably trip over and swear and everything, but we don't seem to do that very much anymore. So where were we? Yes, guest appearances. So yeah, Brian Cox, who I really like, actually.
Me too.
I think he's great. Not to be confused with the actor Brian Cox. This, for anyone outside of the UK, Brian Cox is a sort of TV presenter / astronomer, and probably other things as well, but essentially known as an astronomer. It's brilliant. But he got up on stage with D-Ream, who are not really podcast, or for those about the pod, we salute you material. But yeah, you noticed there were quite a lot of guest appearances this weekend just gone, or last week, or whenever it was.
It was, yeah. So obviously the first one that everybody would have seen on social media over the weekend would have been Coldplay, where they brought Michael J. Fox on stage, and Michael J. Fox played a little bit of guitar on Humankind and Fix You, and obviously. Nice. Yeah, and he's still battling on with his challenges with Parkinson's. So, but I know there's Coldplay and Michael J. Fox have got a relationship where there's been a few times where Coldplay have invited Michael J. Fox onto the stage. So that was the one at Glastonbury. Then we had the Foos, who continued to be in the UK. So they were playing the Aston Villa stadium, and Dave Grohl, it was really funny when you watch the footage. So it's Dave Grohl goes, I would just like to invite onto the stage Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath, to which the Foo Fighters audience was somewhat, that's really lovely, and then
Black Who was it?
Yes. And Dave sort of had to expletively punctuate, this is Dave. This is Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath, people. This is a big moment. So they played Paranoid. So that was another.
Well, that said, sorry, just to jump in there on that, it was a good clip.
Yeah.
Good to see Geezer Butler playing live.
Playing bro.
Yeah. God bless him. But of course, he's a massive Aston Villa. Well, not only is he from Aston, down the road from the stadium, but he's actually an Aston Villa fan. So it must have been great for him, because I don't think. In all their years, Sabbath played at the Villa. Was it in Villa Park?
Yeah.
I don't think he would have played with Sabbath in Villa Park. They may still do, because there's always this talk about possible reunions with. Well, we'll see how it goes with the reunion if Ozzy could make it. That was my Tony Iommi impersonation for those people who've forgotten. It's great to see. Yeah, but Dave Grohl forgot the words. which was quite fun.
I never saw that bit. Oh,
yeah,
how can
I
you
think
forget the words of Paranoid?
well, it's actually a more difficult song than it looks, of
Okay.
course. At least I would think so. But yeah, that was good. What else was there, Brian, on the subject of
Yeah, and there was a
guest
couple.
appearances?
We'll leave the last one to the. We'll leave your favorite one to the end. One which was a great surprise, which was at I think this was at Grass Pop, and it was a weird collaboration in some ways because I never would have put Mr. Bungle, which within its ranks has got Mike Patton from Faith No More, Scott Ian from Anthrax, and Dave Lombardo from from Slayer. So you've got the three of them. So it's going to be quite a heavy combo. And young Wolfgang Van Halen comes out, and Mr. Bungle has recorded an old deep cut of Van Halen's called "Loss of Control," and Wolfgang came out and shredded on this track with them, and it just sounded amazing. Wolfie was just sounded. He sounds so like his dad when he's playing the Van Halen material. It's quite frightening actually. I don't think anybody else can do it.
No. What song do they do?
They did a track called "Loss of Control," which is on Women and Children First. It's a track I didn't really know. I had to listen to it afterwards. It is quite a heavy track, Matt. It's like it's a bit like it reminded me of Queen's Stone Cold Sober, which is quite a heavy.
Stone Cold Crazy. Yeah.
It reminds me, yeah.
No, but this is doing this in one take, remember? Yeah, Stone Cold Crazy. We'll leave that in. Stone Cold Sober is another song. It's a good song, actually, I imagine. You're fast forwarding to the Robert John and the Wreck album. They've got a song on there called something along those lines. We'll come to that later.
Exactly. But the final one, one over the weekend is Metallica and your man Tatler.
Brian Tatler.
Yeah, Brian Tatler.
The fantastic Brian Tatler of Diamond Head, a T, by the way. We'll come on to the letter T later, of course. As you say, joined Diamond Head, who have been massive fans of, joined Metallica, joined Metallica to do a rendition of Diamond Head's anthemic signature song, Am I Bleeping Evil? In Oslo. Unfortunately, early footage was some fairly distant sort of fan shot. I watched it anyway. Brian Tatler, as we know, has had a new lease of life with Saxon, of course, and which is great. So he's obviously used to playing in front of those big audiences with Saxon, and it sounded great. And it is great. It's a great song, and they do it justice. Metallica, and they always have done. They've been playing it since the early days. Famously, they used to do 4 or 5 songs in their set when they first started, which were Diamond Head songs. And they used to, they didn't kind of say, but these are Diamond Head songs. He used to play them in a way, passing them off as their own. However, of course, they have helped Brian with royalties and essentially kept Diamond Head afloat over the years. Anyway, enough about Diamond Head. That was great. Yes, that was fantastic. Watch all those. We'll put them all those clips on.
Put them all on Facebook. And we've got so many other festivals to look forward to. So looking forward to seeing if there's going to be any other collaborations.
Yes,
this summer.
Indeed. Yes, we look forward to it. Change your tack slightly. So, talking of festivals, I suppose. I was there back in 1984 when Status Quo announced their last gig, the End of the Road tour, in 1984 in Milton Keynes in the UK.
Yeah, 40 years ago.
40 years ago. And of course, Quo, came back from the ashes a year later and are still going. But they've announced, in fact, Francis Rossi, I think we touched upon last time in the letter S, Francis Rossi of Status Quo, has said that after this tour, and he's 75 now, Francis, he said that this is going to be it. This will be the last tour. And he said it's not one of those where we're going to carry on afterwards. He's got a couple of he's had prostate cancer issues. He's had one or two other sort of medical issues that he says associated with getting old. Sadly, Quo are going to call it a day, which is a shame. So if you get a chance to see Quo, if you've never seen Status Quo in any of their incarnations, from the Frantic 4 Days through the through the more recent times, when essentially it's just Francis Rossi from that era, then go check them out. The songs are great, the performances are great. Francis Rossi's still singing well, but yeah, sadly, Quo are calling it a day, which is a shame. British institution,
absolutely.
I would suggest.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, I love Quo. We talked about them on the letter S in the last episode
that's
as
right.
well. Yeah,
that's right. Yep, and indeed under Q, we really milked Quo over the last few episodes under S and Q. So this is in a way a fitting footnote to their career. What else you got for us, Brian?
yeah. A singer who I think is fantastic, and we've mentioned this band a few times on the podcast. A band called the River Dogs, which Vivian Campbell. So Vivian was in the River Dogs for a while. Hello, Vivian. So the lead singer Rob Lamoth has been around Europe. He's going around Europe at the moment. Just doing some acoustic shows, bars and clubs. He did have a show booked in, an extensive UK tour. Matt, where do you think that was?
London?
Yes, possibly. Yeah, he was doing one show in London. And Rob, today, has had to cancel his entire European tour because whilst he's been on tour, he had to have emergency surgery on a detached retina in Holland. Ouch. Indeed. So
a detached retina in Holland. That sounds doubly painful.
Yes. Let's hope he had medical insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Ouch. Ouch. Please don't say anything more about anything like that because I'm very squeamish.
Yeah. No. So already all touring commitments. The rest of the tour has been cancelled. He's heading back to the US. So, but he put a nice message up on social media going that whilst he was out on tour, the voice was sounding good. He had a good response from the European audiences, and he's looking forward to coming back in 2025 with maybe a band and a bigger tour. So get well, Rob.
So he's going to play London and Brighton, maybe, I guess, something like that. Keep it in the south.
Yeah, maybe. Nice. He'll do London and Maidstone.
That'd be good. Yeah, I like that. I would like that. Yeah, Rob Lamoth. What a great name.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed. Well, talking of great names, these links get more and more tenuous as the episodes go on. Quadrophenia, the Who, the Who's seminal. I'm not even sure what seminal means, to be honest with you. But the Who's concept album, I should say. One take, Brian. One take.
Okay, one take.
The Who's concept album is going to be turned into a ballet. Very much in the same vein as the Sabbath ballet last year. Now, I was reading about this. Now, do you remember our friend Matt Graydon did a very nice, he was a published author, we should add, did a very nice summary of the Sabbath ballet. Well, Quadrophenia, it's going to be a story, because the Quadrophenia itself was a story of this young lad called Jimmy.
Yep.
A young mod. We won't hold that against him. Who is trying to find his way in the world. That's the kind of press thing. So the ballet is going to be built around Jimmy the mod, and his people who can't see it, Brian. You're chuckling to yourself. It's all over the UK. It's not just playing London. It's Plymouth.
This is what I'm quite happy you can keep in Covent Garden.
No. It's coming to Edinburgh. I think you should go. You should go take one for the team.
Okay.
Go and see this ballet. I can see you at the ballet. So that's what you think. Where's it all going to end, Brian? Ballets for everything. It's going to be I'm sure there's going to be a Slayer ballet at some point. That'd be great, wouldn't it? After they finished headlining Stone Dead.
Yeah,
I can see them coming off, developing the Slayer ballet.
That's fantastic. That's one for our listeners. Which album or band would you like to see their tunes made into a ballet?
Yes, good question. You can see some prog acts, I think, like Rush and maybe not Pink Floyd, but maybe Yes could be turned into a ballet because it's a bit more sort of, orchestral, as it were. But yeah, we shall see about that. What else have you got? Have you got anything else, Brian?
Yeah, sad news though. And Peter Collins, the world-renowned record producer, passed away recently. I think when we were looking through Peter's discography in terms of his production credits, Peter has produced some of my favorite albums mainly in the 80s. He was probably one of the go-to 80s rock producers. He produced 3 of Gary Moore's albums in the mid 80s. He did Run for Cover. He did After the War. Phenomenal producer. He produced, oh my goodness, Queensryche. In terms of Empire, which is a phenomenal album, and one of my, I think I've gone on record as saying is one of my favorite Rush albums. He produced Power Windows as well too. So he was kind of like, in my view, personally, he was kind of like the rock Trevor Horn. He brought all of that technology in, and he was able to do that. And he produced Nick Kershaw. So he did Nick Kershaw's first two albums, and I'm a big fan of Nick Kershaw as well too. So sad loss. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, 73 from pancreatic cancer, which is very sad.
Yeah.
So yes, but as we've always said many times, its legacy will continue, and a very eclectic mix of bands and acts that he worked with. Changing the subject slightly, finally, biopics. Now, biopics. We've talked about those once or twice over the years. There was the famous Motley Crue one. I think it was called The Dirt, wasn't it?
Was indeed, yes.
Yeah, The Dirt. There was Bohemian Rhapsody, the Queen biopic. There was an ill-fated one about Def Leppard, which several people, you could find it on YouTube. It's absolutely horrendous. I think it's called that's the famous one where they come out of Sheffield, it says London 5 miles or something like that. It's clearly done in America. Hilarious. But there is going to be a Scorpions biopic, focusing, I think, the information is quite sort of, there's not much information about it at the moment, but essentially it's going to be based, I think, on the early years of the formation of the band, essentially Klaus Meine and Rudolf Schenker putting together the Scorpions in the year I was born. So it's only, as we said last time, about 27 plus change years ago. So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. I'm not sure who the audience will be. I mean, once the Scorpions fans have watched it, and there are a few, don't get me wrong, but, Queen, yeah, you can understand. Motley Crue on Netflix, I think got a lot of hype, and it was pretty kind of, a little bit on the sort of risque side, should we put it, to put it mildly. I'm not sure the audience is going to be for the Scorpions biopic. And in the same vein, we talked about the Bon Scott biopic. You say biopic, like a yogurt drink you would drink to help your gut. And I say biopic. I guess both are right. There's a Bon Scott one. There's a Keith Moon one in the works.
Okay.
That'd be an interesting one. Yeah. There's a Heart biopic in the works as well. So clearly biopics are the name of the game. And then you reminded me earlier about the Boss biopic, the Bossopic. There's going to be a biopic about Bruce the Boss Springsteen. starring someone you've heard of. I don't even know what the Bear is, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's going to be starring someone who is in the. Is it a TV show? The Bear.
It is. It's a comedy. It's a comedy drama about a chef. Bear. Yeah, we discuss it on For Those About to Cook.
Oh, it's about a chef, not about Bear at all.
No.
Oh, okay. Jeremy Allen White.
This
is going to star as the boss, not boss. You got to be talking about the Bear now. About the boss. As the boss. Whose idea was it to do it in one take? It's like when you see those TV shows where they do live, and there's all sorts of weird things happen. Anyway, where were we? Yes. So there's conjecture as to whether he's going to sing, which I don't think is a good idea. To be honest, I think they should have him kind of miming to the boss. Don't you?
Yeah, unless he's got a voice that sounds some way like him, because
Well, true.
that was the beauty of Bohemian Rhapsody. Because when you look at Freddie's voice and a great Canadian singer called Mark, I think it's Mark Martel, and Rami Malek. What they did for what they did on the Bohemian Rhapsody album is they kind of, he had to use the word AI, but what they did is they actually produced a mix of all three of the vocals, so that it's not just Freddie's voice. So there's a little bit of Rami in there, and there's a little bit of Mark's vocal as well too, who's a world-renowned, Freddie, Freddie sound alike. So, which brings a little bit of authenticity to it, because there's nothing worse than watching somebody trying to mime to backing tracks.
True. And of course, there was the Elvis biopic. I can't remember who sang on that, but it was, what's his name? Is it Austin Butler?
Yes, Austin Butler.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in our other podcast for those about to rock and roll. We salute you. Well, anything else, Brian? Finally, very finally.
Yeah, no. So you posed me a question in pre-production. You did.
I did. I remember now. Yes.
So you asked me if there was any artists out there who I thought would be deserving of a biopic, and I have a little list.
Really? Already?
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay. Let's hear it then.
Okay. Well, there's three off the bat straight away. Number one, AC/DC.
Yeah. Well, there's a Bon Scott one in the works. So it's kind of.
But that's Bon Scott. Okay. For me, I think there's a story post Bon, which is Back in Black. It's the Brian Johnson years.
Okay. Well, with someone like Jimmy Nail playing Brian Johnson, that'd be fun, wouldn't it?
The next one I thought would be interesting would be Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, it's a good shout.
You could do the Peter Green, you could do the Rumours, you could do all of that. And then the one which for me, we might as well just call this Rock Family Trees, which is the story of Deep Purple. Because you could do, you just go through, you could do it all. You include Richie, David.
Yeah, you could do. On that subject, finally, we were talking in pre-production about the fact that, and I remember this, there was years and years ago, I think the early 80s, there was talk about Phil Lynott playing Jimi Hendrix in a biopic. And then fast forward to the mid-2000s, Gary Dourdan, American actor who was he was one of the CSI TV shows.
Yeah.
CSI Miami. He was that got kind of canned. But do you remember, unless I dreamt this, there was talk about a Led Zepp biopic with Jason Donovan to play Robert Plant.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
I'm sure there was talk about it. And then finally, coming up to something we talked about last time, we talked about the band Collateral last time.
Okay.
Yeah, and Angelo Tristan, who we talked about as a singer, he is a singer, frontman of Collateral. Again, I'm sure I heard a rumor that he was cast as Steven Tyler in an Aerosmith biopic. So clearly, as I say, biopics they're all over the place.
Yeah.
And as we famously talked about episode 5, if they did a biopic of this, I think Liam Neeson would play you, clearly, and who did we say would play me? Was it Alan Rickman? I think the late great Alan. Of course, he's late great now.
I did say somebody who you weren't particularly enamored with.
That's right. Well, maybe it would have been Alan Rickman if he was still with us. Anyway, we digress. Anything else? Is that it?
That's it. That's it for news.
Okay. So, Brian, that brings us to this episode's New Rock on the Block. We've got 2 albums to review. We've got the new album by Black Country Community called 5, or V, depending on your perspective. And we've got the new album by Robert John and the Wreck called Red Moon Rising, or Red Moon Rising, depending on your perspective. So what did you think of BCC 5/V? First
I
album from them in a while, isn't it?
it has, and dare I say, to use that old rock and roll pun, Matthew, a return to form, because BCC4, which came out in 2017, was a bit of, it just felt like let's just all run into the studio and chuck a lot of ideas down, and it felt very much like a more of a heavy Glenn Hughes solo album, whereas this album, and they've released a few tracks off it before it was released. We had Enlighten and Stay Free, and when I first heard those tracks before the album came out, I thought, oh, sounds more cohesive. It sounded like a really good mix. Obviously, Black Country Communion, the albums are all produced by Kevin Shirley, so it's always a stellar production. But as an album as a whole, Matt, I think it just sounds like Black Country Communion. There's, in the sense of, it doesn't sound like a Glenn Hughes solo album. It's very band. You can hear Joe. The star of the album for me is Derek Sherinian. It's the first album in 5 where his Hammond organ and keyboards are really up in the mix, particularly for some of the funkier tracks, like Stay Free's quite got that Stevie Wonder clavinet, and then the track Love and Faith, where there's some great keyboards as well too. So Derek's keys are well up in the mix. I just loved it, and Glenn's vocal performance. The man's in his mid-70s. And his vocal performance on "You're Not Alone," where he's hitting those high notes and just the emotion in his vocal, I was expecting mediocrity, and I actually got an album. It's not their best album, but it's a good solid 8.5 out of 10 for me, Matt. I've listened to it a few times, and not taking anything away from Jason Bonham as well too, who often gets overlooked in the project, but Jason's drumming in it is just sensational. They, when you listen to Stay Free, Red Sun, there are hints of Zeppelin. There is drumming. Some of the staccato, up tempo material. Love and Faith is just so Led Zeppelin. So yeah, I was really impressed with it. It's a shame that they're not able to follow it up straight away, Matt, with a tour because of everybody else's commitments. But yeah, return to form for BCC. How do you think of it?
Very good, very good. I wasn't quite as bowled over as you. That said, I'm not the biggest BCC fan. I like the BBC, but BCC not so much of a
or BOC.
BOC, yeah, I'm happy with BOC, British Oxygen Corporation, or whatever they used to be called. Blue Oyster Cult, of course. I agree with you about the Led Zepp vibe. Certainly, I've written it down here, and specific Love and Faith. There's a song called Restless, which starts with a guitar lick by Jeb Bonamassa, which reminded me of Since I've Been Loving You. It's almost like the same notes, just slightly kind of in the different order. Did you notice that, Bright?
I thought it was very blue. That was a Joe Bonamassa solo track. That to me was It was very Gary Moore, and it had that Dazed and Confused Since I've Been Loving You type Les Paul sound. Very much, yeah.
And you said about Derek Sherinian and the keyboards. If you listen closely to his keyboard used on that, it sounds very much like a song called All My Love by Led Zepp. Yeah. Not that I like Led Zepp or know all their songs, or think they're the greatest band ever next to Diamond Head, but it does sound like a bit like them. I loved one or two things. There was a bit where Jason Bonham does the count in. The 1, 2, 3, 4, and it sounded it was so like John Bonham. He's 20 years older than his dad was when he died, sadly. To put things in perspective, but it's really sounded like him. I quite liked it. I wish I did think did sound a bit like a Glenn Hughes solo album.
Okay,
and I also felt it was. He's got a certain style these days, Glenn Hughes, whether he's on his own doing the Deep Purple stuff and style. I mean, not necessarily singing style, but it's kind of overall sort of lyrical style.
Very
The
much,
last Dead
yes.
Daisies album,
Yes.
you could kind of interchange some of these songs from the last Dead Daisies album. I thought you said Funky Groove was there, which
Yeah.
he's been renowned for since the Deep Purple days.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have had Joe Bonamassa singing a few songs or participate more in the vocals than he did. There's a song, I don't know what album it's on, Bri, you'd know, Battle for Hadrian's Wall, which I think is on the first or second album,
Yeah.
which Joe Bonamassa sings, which is a magnificent song.
Yeah.
That said, it's a good album. It takes a few listens. My standout track was a song called Open Road, which I think is towards the end, if not the end, or the last song on the album.
Yeah. That was quite really Beatles. There's a Beatles vibe to that with the
possibly
Mellotron.
But you're right. I mean, it's magnificent singing. I mean, his voice just gets almost better with age, or at least it doesn't deteriorate. Joe Bonamassa's guitar playing immense as usual, despite the ticket prices for his solo gigs. Jason Bonham drumming, if not as good, then almost as good as his dad. And Derek Sherinian, I didn't quite see him up in the mix as much as you did, but I don't listen out necessarily for, that level of detail when I'm walking the dog. It's quite difficult to pick up, poo when you're listening out for Derek Sherinian keyboard solos. Dog poo, that is, I might add. Anyway, so that was BCC 5.
Just one final point. Next year, Joe, if there are any press passes going for your tour in the UK, we are still available to come and watch and provide good feedback, irrespective of how expensive your tickets are.
That's true. Oh yeah. If you're listening, Joe, it's fine. Go for it. Right. So that brings us to the new album by Robert John and the Wreck. Which is called Red Moon Rising. Now, this is their 9th album since 2011. That's pretty prolific by today's standards.
Yes.
And they've almost done one a year for the last 5 or 6 years, which is pretty good. I really like Robert John and the Wreck. Do you remember that song, Oh Miss Carolina?
Yeah.
Which I think was certainly one of our favourite songs from, I think, 2021 or so, maybe that era. Absolutely brilliant. What did you? I'm going to go first on this.
This is you.
Yeah. So, Red Moon Rising, I say 9th album from Robert John and the Wreck. He's got a great voice, fantastic voice, one of the great voices of recent years. I think he's got a sort of unique style, singing style. There's a lot of variety on this album, which I always like. You can't say that about the BCC album particularly, because it's, as you say, it's got Kevin Shirley all over it. But with Robert John and the Wreck, there was a lot of sort of kind of light and shade, different tempos, and so on. I wrote down Americana to start with, but I thought I don't even know what Americana really means, because you can't label everything as Americana. So it's got a tinge of Americana about it, but it's also got some southern rock without being too Allman Brothers or Leonard Skinner, or I think it owes more to Bob Seger possibly as an influence. The interesting thing I noticed, he sings a lot of the lyrics are about a he or a she. A lot of them are in the third person, and this she, whoever Robert John is talking about, I'd be very interested to know who it is. So he talks about the she in Stone Cold Killer, in Trouble, and one or two other songs. Favorite songs to me, Ballad of a Broken Hearted Man is an absolute epic, as is the title track, Red Moon Rising, as is the last song on the album, Beautiful Sentiment, a song called Give Love. I would... If you haven't seen them live, they're fantastic live, really good live band, great musicianship. I hope they're going to be huge. They are headlining a few festivals and popping up here and there over the summer. I think they're touring the UK.
November.
I can't.
Yeah,
there you go.
late
Thank
November.
you. I'm seeing them, I think, late November, early December. I thought they're great. I think this is one of my favorite albums of the year so far, and it's very. You can let it wash over you. You can have it as background music. It's quite chilled. Catchy songs, good melodies, all good. 9 out of 10 from me, Brian. What do you think?
That's a really interesting review, Matthew, because Kevin Shirley produced this album.
Oh, did
He
he?
did.
Oh, I didn't know. I should have done my own research. I didn't realise that.
No, but
I
that's
mean,
but that's yeah.
it's very well produced. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
but I
He's a busy boy, the old
a
caveman,
very
isn't
busy boy. Yeah. So Robert John and the Wreck are actually signed to Joe Bonamassa's record label. So I think
right.
Kevin Shirley's like the producer in chief. But
Right.
everything you said, I completely agree with. When I listened to the album, I was struck with his voice. And it's kind of it's when you listen to These Wicked Rivers album, which again was a great album. From a segue point of view, These Wicked Rivers, and then you sort of move nicely into this album, and then you just get it's a little bit more soaked with the bourbon.
Yeah.
And the two words for this album, when I was listening to it the whole way through, it's got swing and swagger. There's a real, there's sometimes the band sound, whenever they rocked it up, the more up-tempo tracks reminded me of Blackstone Cherry a little bit, the heavier stuff.
Yep.
But then they could go, like, tracks for me, like Help Yourself, which is very piano. You're in that Rolling Stones when they were in the Graham Parsons period, Wild Horses. It just had that lovely, as you say, Americana. The Stones were so influenced in that period with Graham Parsons. And I just thought it was really, really, it was good. The ballad of a broken hearted man. Two things came in my mind. The guitars, the slide player, the lead guitar player in the band is phenomenal.
Yeah.
His slide playing was just echoes of Jeff Beck, and you could hear in the acoustic playing. I've listened to the album a couple of times now. I'm hearing the kind of the Wonder Dead or Alive, Blaze of Glory type. That sort of Cowboys. Not necessarily as commercial as those big MTV hits, but just the layering of the production. I was very, very impressed with this album, and as you say, that the two standout tracks are the title track itself, which is great, and Ballad of a Broken Hearted Man. It's really, really good. It's just swing, swagger. It's just. I was thinking about this as how many more bands can we get into the genre of modern Southern rock, Matt? There's just, when you think of, Blackberry Smoke, Blackstone Cherry, even the Black Crows coming back, and even when we listen to the likes of the Karma Effect from the UK, everybody's in this sweet spot of swaggering Southern rock. It's great album. Great album.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, go check it out. Red Moon Rising. It's got a great album cover too.
Yeah.
It's almost worth getting the vinyl. I think now we've returned to vinyl largely. The album covers are really good now, and this has got a fantastic Red Moon Rising on it. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, go check it out.
So Matt, we now reach the letter T in the A to Z of rock. And we will start with the band, which, in my opinion, recorded the greatest live album of all time.
No, you're getting ahead of yourself. You for UFOs next time.
Exactly. I'm getting in early.
Okay.
Yeah, we can only start with, for me, in the letter T, with Thin Lizzy, Matthew, a band...
Yes.
A band formed in 1969 with the great Philip Lynott, Eric Bell, and Brian Downey. And there's 3 eras of Thin Lizzy. Before Gary Moore, with Gary Moore, and after Gary Moore.
Okay. All right.
And put on 4 hours worth of Thin Lizzy music. No. the band in Ireland, the band that's held in such high regard, Thin Lizzy, when you think of the influence that they've had, the influence on U2, but Phil was always held alongside Van Morrison and Rory Gallagher, his poetry, his writing, even some of his solo material, which he always was we called him the rocker, but he had a soft side to him. The greatest Irish rock hero of all time. So we're kicking off with Thin Lizzy, Matthew.
Yes, I thought we might. When we were preparing for this, I wrote down, that was the first band I wrote down, Thin Lizzy. Magnificent. Great. And yeah, you're right. One of the greatest live albums ever with Live and Dangerous from 1978, I think it was.
Yeah. pulled together and manufactured together from lots of shows in 1977.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. As they all were. Yeah, it's a good shout, Brian. Thin Lizzy, magnificent band. And I think we should go next to two bands, actually, two T's that kind of one kicked things off and then morphed into the other. Terraplane and Thunder.
Yeah.
Now, so we all know about Thunder. I mean, they had a illustrious.
Just you're going to quiz me now in Terraplane, and I go, ooh.
No, I do vaguely remember Terraplane. So Terraplane essentially were Danny Bowes and Luke Morley with Harry/Gary James on drums, who, they were. I do remember them coming around in the late 80s. I think saw them in Kerrang and stuff. They did have the most illustrious career. Released that said, they released a couple of albums. Black and White and Moving Target, but morphed into Thunder in 1989 after Terraplane had broken up. And Thunder, I mean, again, talk about a British institution. We touched upon them a few episodes ago. They didn't quite, time it in terms of breaking America, but Danny Bowes, what a voice. Luke Morley, great guitarist. The kind of heart of the band with Harry James still on drums. We hope they're still going. Danny Bowes has had recent health issues, so it'd be good if we saw them again. But yeah, great band, Thunder. We'll put some Thunder stuff on the playlist. We'll also put Thunderstruck on the playlist, which they used to come on to, of course. That was their walk-on song. So call it walk-on song, intro tape.
Yes.
Thunderstruck by the mighty AC/DC, who I shall be seeing this week, and I shall tell you all about it on the next episode. Back to you, Bri, in the world of the teas.
In the world of the teas, I'm going to stay in the 80s, Matthew. I would get lynched if I didn't.
But that is you all over, though, isn't it? You're stuck in the 80s,
Really?
right? Let's face it.
Exactly. Remember, that's the Thin Lizzy period after Gary Moore in the 80s.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
exactly.
the one of the three periods. I was listening. Three periods.
Yeah,
anyway, where were you?
So I'm going to stay in the genre that I seem to be stuck in, Matthew, and never coming out. And I'm frantically now trying to change my hidden gem in my head because it's from the 80s as well. But we'll get to that. So I'm going to go with a great band that. In the mid 80s, when we've talked about the mid 80s, and particularly in America with all of I never know the difference between glam metal and hair metal, but there were so many bands that came out of the mid 80s, and this album struck me like a hammer in 1986. It's a band, but I think a band from Texas, which is Tesla.
Right.
Yeah, Tesla came out with their debut album, Mechanical Resonance, and they had I remember the track Modern Day Cowboy and Little Susie.
Great song.
Yeah. So their debut album, and they also got a bit. They had great patronage from Def Leppard. So when everybody on the planet who I seem to know that was going to rock gigs in the 1980s, who saw the Hysteria tour that I didn't, they always talk about the great nights in Sheffield and Belfast where Tesla supported Def Leppard and was one of their gigs of life. But Tesla had a great softer side to them as well too. The musicians in the band, and they put out a live acoustic album which is called 5-Man Acoustical Jam, and they do Beatles covers, and it's just it's what it says on the tin, 5 guys playing acoustically, and it's just phenomenal. Tracks like Signs, and then obviously tracks off Mechanical Resonance as well. So Tesla is one of the T's that I could not have left out, Matthew.
Good shout. Very good shout indeed. Well, I'm going to sort of stay in that era. You mentioned Nwabum earlier. Tigers of Pantang.
Damn, did I really? Oh, no.
Yes, indeed, you did. That is a trigger for me to talk about something or a band related to Nwabum. Well, if there wasn't Tigers of Pantang, there'd be no John Sykes, of course, and you wouldn't have kind of,
that's very true. Very
hijacked him and taken him to Thin Lizzy, and then you wouldn't have kind of tried to get a 3 pickup Black Les Paul, etc., etc. The rest is history, which you probably have in your home studio. There it is. Tigers of Pantang. Yes, we talked about them. Did some good albums. Spellbound, Crazy Nights, which is pretty good. Sadly, didn't quite get the commercial peak that they should have done, particularly since after John Sykes left. And famously, Rob Weir, who's the only remaining member of Tigers of Pantang, in his 60s now, works as on the trains.
He does indeed, yeah.
Yeah, there was an article, I forget where it was now, I read it somewhere, but Rob Weir famously plays with Tigers of Pantang 1 minute, and next day he's working on I think he's like a station, what do they call those, like train assistants now, on those kind of intercity runs up and down the country. So yeah, look out for Rob Weir if you're ever on a London to Newcastle train. It could be take your vinyl with you just in case he's there to sign it in between selling donuts and coffees and stuff. Anyway, the other band from that era, which I want to mention very quickly, Trust. Now, of course, they weren't English; they were French. So they were from Nwabum, the new wave of French heavy metal. I think I've pronounced that correctly. I just made that up. Essentially, it could change to Nwabum. So Trust, I love Trust, fronted by Bernard Bonvoisin and. The Creef brothers, I seem to recall, and famously Nico McBrain played in Trust before he went to join Iron Maiden in 1982-83. So I saw Trust a couple of times, supporting Maiden on the Killers tour. In fact, they were the first band I ever saw live, strangely enough, on that tour, my first ever gig. And then a few weeks later, specifically on the 24th of May, 1981, don't ask me, I remember the date. I'll come on to that another time. I saw the Trust's headlining in the University of East Anglia in Norwich. So Trust, yes, part of Nwabum. Anyway, whatever it was.
So this is a band that's definitely not in Nwabum. Nwabum. It's Toto.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, got to mention Toto. Yeah, the pop rock band of the 70s, 80s. And just seem to be getting much more of a revival. It seems like every man and his dog seems to be doing a cover of Africa, which brings a lot more shekels into the Total coffers. Not really they're not really a recording entity anymore. Steve Lukather's gone on record to say there'll be no more studio albums, but they do come across to Europe. They're playing in Europe right at this moment in time, and they're coming back to the UK next year, and they are playing more than just London, I hope. So Toto's one of those bands. I'll put loads of stuff on the playlist for Toto. Don't worry about that.
Oh, you're in charge of the playlist now.
No.
It's changed.
No. I will provide a co-crediting playlist architecture.
Oh, okay, all right. But it's a band you like. You get involved when you don't care. You don't care, do you? Well, that's charming. That is charming. Right, notable mentions. We saw These Wicked Rivers a few weeks ago. You mentioned them earlier. Force of Nature, great album. The Tragically Hip, one of my favourite bands out of Canada, fronted by the late great Gord Downey. Sadly lost him a couple of years ago to brain tumour. Fantastic band. I'll put some Tragically Hip on the on my part of the playlist. Um, and there's a band, Brian, that we can make out of. We'll come back to bands in a minute, but we can make a band out of people with surname Taylor. Would you like me to walk you through it?
Absolutely. I'll be Taylor Swift. Is Taylor Swift on guitar?
Yeah, she's doing everything. It's just her, really. It's basically Taylor Swift. No, that she would be in the S's.
All right, okay. I'll get it. I'll get it by the end.
So on two drummers, I'm going for the late great Filthy Animal Taylor of Motorhead, with Roger Taylor from Queen,
not Duran
also on
Duran.
the drums. Well, you could have Roger Taylor from Duran Duran as well, of course, but I'm going with the Roger Taylor from Queen. You could also have Rufus Tiger Taylor from The Darkness on drums.
Three drummers.
Yes, I think that's overdoing it a little bit. We'll have on the bass guitar John Taylor from Duran Duran. He's a pretty good bass player.
Fabulous bass player.
And was he at Power Station as well?
He was. Yeah.
There you go. Andy Taylor, that we talked about last year, actually, with that magnificent album we brought out last year. Andy Taylor on guitar. Corey Taylor from Slipknot and Stone Sour on vocals.
Never would have gone with that. That's a great shout.
And I know you had the Smith Band last time, which is a fantastic name. I'm still sort of reeling at how magnificent that name was. I'm going with Tailor Made. There you go. Okay. The Tailors. Three drummers. How about that? That's going to make some racket.
It's like King Crimson.
Exactly. What else you got for us, Brian? They can't play in your local pub. Though. Can you imagine them setting up under the dartboard with all those drum kits? Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, notable mentions for me. A great American band who I loved in the 90s. I'll move out of the 80s for a little bit. This is one of the greatest names of a band ever. Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Oh yes, magnificent.
Yeah, they had a great album called Dulcinea. Apologies if that's not the right pronunciation, but great band. Glenn Phillips, who's the lead singer, still active, still playing, and whenever there's sort of the alternative rock package deals that go out with Three Doors Down, Weezer, all the Offspring, you'll usually see Toad the Wet Sprocket somewhere in amongst the bill, and then a couple of supergroups, Matt. It wouldn't be me not to mention a couple of supergroups. Them Crooked Good Vultures.
Yep.
Still a few little rumors kicking about that they might. I think Dave's desperately trying to get Josh to commit to maybe doing something with John Paul Jones. And the other supergroup that I mentioned, whether this is a supergroup or a project, I don't know, was Temple of the Dog, which was put together following the demise of Mother Love Bone's lead singer.
Andrew Wood.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got another supergroup, actually. I thought you were going to say Traffic.
Yeah, it was Stevie Winwood.
Yeah, exactly. Magnificent. What a singer, Stevie Winwood.
Oh.
Fantastic. So a couple more from me real quick. And thanks to everyone who contributed on Facebook, of course, as usual. Makes our life a lot easier. T-Rex, fronted by the late, great Mark Bolan, of course. Tool. Yes. Don't know much about Tool, but I'm sure they're pretty good. Train, you like them, don't you?
I love Train.
Drops of Jupiter and all that. Fantastic. We have got Trapeze. We talked about Glenn Hughes earlier.
Yeah.
Glenn Hughes, Mel Galley were both late, great, Mel Galley and Dave Holland. Mm-hmm. They went on to work with Judas Priest. TerraVision, talked about Toto. Tenacious D. We're gonna have to put Tribute, of course, another T. Tribute. So we'll put that on. Triumph, we talked about them a couple of times. The other three-piece from Canada.
Yeah.
Albums wise, and we got albums wise and performers wise, we've got Test for Echo by Rush, 2112 by Rush, Tango in the Night by Fleetwood Mac, Tommy by The Who, 10 by Pearl Jam. Do you remember why they called 10? Well, why they called it 10, Brian?
No.
Mookie Blaylock's number.
Was it? Okay, fair enough.
All right. Tico Torres, Robert Trujillo, Glenn Tipton, the magnificent Glenn Tipton from Judas Priest, and many more. Pat Travis, Pat Thrall. There's loads. Got any others, Brian, you want to mention?
I think your list is very comprehensive. The only one I would add in, and it would be remiss of us not to mention this band, is Twisted Sister. I remember seeing Twisted Sister on the Tube in the early 80s and all of their glam regalia singing I'm Me. And then We're Not Gonna Take It. The album Stay Hungry is phenomenal. And the fact that I think it does it go down in either Donington or Reading folklore where Twisted Sister are playing and they're just getting so much debris chucked at them during the festival that I think Dee Snider basically said, okay, why don't after the performance, if you don't like us, come backstage and we'll have it out. So he basically called, was it Donington?
Yeah, I was there. Donington 83.
Was it?
Terrifying. He threatened. He basically said, like, all of you come backstage. I'll have you. I'll take you all on.
And he was,
and I for one was terrified. I thought, I don't know. I'm fine. I didn't throw it at you, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, just his sister.
And the other side of Dee Snider that I love is whenever he represented the rock community in the Tipper Gore PMRC, where they were trying to ban lots and lots of bands, and Twisted Sister had made it onto the filthy 15 of the tracks that were going to be banned, and he came on with Frank Zappa, and yes, he was in his rock gear, but he was quoting parts of the law back to Tipper Gore, and he was tying them up in knots, and you just kind of go, I've always had a soft spot for Dee Snider and Twisted Sister. Great band.
Absolutely. Well, that was it. That was tea.
Yes,
Brian. Next time, if my knowledge of the alphabet doesn't let me down, it's the letter U.
Excellent. So that will be a double deluxe episode whilst we do a full in-depth track by track of Strangers in the Night by UFO, where Matt talks us through.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I look forward to it already.
All 7 discs of the deluxe version that came out a couple of years ago. Indeed. So that brings us to
Hidden Gems Eyes.
Thanks, Lola, as always. So we got for us, Brian.
So, one of our listeners and contributors to our Facebook page, your mate Rich.
Yep.
Rich put on a band to include in the T's, TNT. Who again were in that glam hair metal bands. But I haven't picked a track by TNT. I haven't picked an album. That would be just too easy. But one of their contemporaries in the mid '80s, which came up around the time of White Lion. Remember White Lion? We'll do that in the W's when we get bored talking about David. There's a great band that came out in the late '80s called Shark Island. So Shark Island. I know you laugh. Where does Brian pull these?
I know. I was thinking exactly that. Where do you get these from? Shark Island. Well, there's the story. So Shark Island, a great band, and it came out of the mid '80s. They didn't, the album that came out. The album that came out that we'll put on, which is Law of the Order, Matt, starts off with a track called Paris Calling. It is your quintessential 80s glam metal, great singer, histrionics on the guitar, a la Noonan Bettencourt and all that kind of stuff. But where they go down in history is that they actually, where I know them from is they had 2 tracks on the Bill and Ted's Excellent. They had on the soundtrack for that. So when you went out and bought the soundtrack and it had all of the Bill and Ted stuff, there was 2 Shark Island tracks on it. So you go, oh, who's this band? So I checked them out. So my hidden gem
if you want to go and check them out on social media, I'll probably find it hard to buy it in CD, is Law of the Order from 1989 from the great band Shark Island. So, Rich, thanks very much for the TNT, which took me to Shark Island.
That was great.
What you got?
Yeah, excellent. Wow, I'm still dumbfounded by Shark Island, to be honest with you. Did we talk about the Nickelback documentary already on this
I think
we call a podcast.
I think we did.
I think we did. Yeah, because I watched it the weekend. I recommend everyone watches it. By the way, it's called Love to Hate. I think. Nickelback, Love to Hate.
Yeah.
I was going to have that as a hidden gem, but then I think we've already talked about it. However, I'm going to go for a band called that we already touched upon, called Trust. Now, as I say, I saw them back in the day, and their album Repression from 1981. We may have had it as a hidden gem before. If we have, apologies. But I absolutely love that album. It's been recently remastered, or relatively recently remastered. Sounds much better than the original. Very political, very of its time. As I say, fronted by the charismatic Bernard Bonvoisin. And they were the forefront of the Neufobum. I'm still not sure if that works, to be honest with you. Anyway, new wave of French heavy metal.
You are the new Jeff Barton. You've now created a retrospective metal genre.
Well, possibly. But yeah, Trust. The album Repression. It's got Antisocial on it, which was covered subsequently by Anthrax. I nearly forgot them as well for a minute. And yeah, it's quite political. It's got songs like Mr. Comedy, Death Instinct, In the Name of the Race, and so on. My favorite song on it, and I used to practice this when I was doing my French O level, is a song in French called Le Mitard, which is about Jacques Mesrine, who was a character, an underworld character in the 70s in France. But anyway, Repression by Trust, hidden gem this episode. There you go. Merci, au revoir, à bientôt, mon ami Brian.
Où est la bibliothèque? Je voudrais acheter une tasse de thé.
I'll see what I can do. Right, that was number was that episode 67. Thanks for listening, everyone. Do you want to say goodbyes or hellos or anyone or edits or
all I would like to say is you'll if you're coming to the show for the first time, there's 66 other shows to listen to, so please like, subscribe, send us a little review, and we're now on YouTube, so you can catch the show on YouTube as well too, and we are on Scotland Rocks Radio as well too, so you can catch us on the wireless as well too. That's it.
Indeed. Yeah, good. Well done. Thanks, everyone. Speak to you next time. Keep in touch. Be good to each other.
Bye.
All the best. Bye. Goes Back to Pod. We Salute You is a Made in Rogers production.